Actually, Palestinians have a special love for Japanese people. Please speak up for the oppression that the Palestinians are going through and do not forget them.
Okay, just on my way to the protest in Kojimachi area, and there's bare police around that area there. There's loads. There's undercover police here. There's police stopped everywhere. Obviously to make sure to maintain the peace and to make sure nothing gets out of hand. But I've been to a few protests before and I never really seen any issues at all, to be honest. So I hope there's no issues like that today. But I hope the people's voices are heard and hope they can drum up support, you know? This guy's clocking me hard. Whatever! Man, it's been really upsetting these last few days watching all of the videos and news coming out of Palestine, Gaza. But the pressure is on Israel for the first time. They blew up the AP building, the Al Jazeera media buildings. So obviously they don't want the information getting out, and there's also a lot of money being spent on suppressing this information. There's a whole propaganda machine. Hasbara is in control of that, and there's a lot of online videos showing the kind of applications that are encouraging everyday civilians, usually Israelis, to shut down individual pro-Palestinian posts, to shut them up, or just to get involved and to fill it up with pro-Israeli comments, you know, to drown out the noise. So there's a lot of those applications, a lot. So the pressure is being felt. Woo, it's baking today. Man is sweating.
Free my people, long live Palestine. We will never let you go.
Sing it with me now. Free, free Palestine. 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 Free, free Palestine.
Mr. Tawfiq here.
From Algeria.
From Algeria.
イスラエルの民族浄化が頭にきて、もう前から続いてるじゃないですか、もう昔から、それで来ました。イスラエル確かにナクバのあれで十何年前ぐらい1回行ったんですけど、それからですね、今日なんか停戦とか出たじゃないですか、ニュース。でも何回も約束破ってるじゃないですか、イスラエルは。だからちょっと当てにならないですね。アメリカは強く言わなくちゃいけないと思うんですよね。ほんの一部だと思うんですよね。活動を何らかの活動をやってる人が主にやってると思うんですよ。だからほんの少しだけですよね。そうなんです。
Palestine people are very suffering now.
Suffering, so
Yes, so we are solidarity with Palestine peoples and against protesting Israel. The Netanyahu government very but they will destroy Palestine and society. あんまりほら日本人がパレスチナの状況を知らないね、
ほとんどですね。はい。
知ってる人は本当に同情して理解して
そうですね。
サポートします。日本人の心は、正しいものと平和が欲しい。だからそれをもっと知らせなきゃいけないということです。
End Gaza blockade.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
Israel is apartheid!
Israel is apartheid.
That's true, right?
Israel's policies make this kind of spates of violence inevitable. And until we undo apartheid policies and undo occupation, this violence will never end. First of all, the international community has to abandon the sick idea of a two-state solution, because if it was ever possible, which I don't really think it was, it's definitely not possible in 2021. There's no such thing as a Palestinian state unless all of the 600,000 Jewish colonists evacuate the West Bank, unless East Jerusalem is given over to the Palestinians and all of the colonization that's happened in East Jerusalem is undone. There's no such thing as a Palestinian state. It can't happen. So the only alternative is a one state, a binational state, some federalized arrangement where one person, one vote. This is not reinventing the wheel. We've seen this happen in South Africa, in Ireland. That's the only solution in my mind. And how we get to that point is BDS. We have to direct our energy into a movement, a mass movement, a civil resistance, non-violent, anti-racist. That's BDS. That's our only option. We have no alternative.
Just to play devil's advocate, like, there's a lot of good Israelis. It's very difficult for them to speak out. These kind of things affect them too, the boycott and everything.
What would we say to them?
That's a great question. And targeted boycotts also, to play devil's advocate, affect the Palestinians who are living under apartheid. But this is what Martin Luther King Jr. said all the time in the civil rights movement. You have to be willing to sacrifice something. He knew that black people that were marching in the South were going to put their bodies on the line. Unless people are willing to do that, then nothing will change. We have to be willing to put our money where our mouth is, and we have to put economic pressure on the Jewish state to change. BDS, it started in 2005, so it's less than 15 years old. It's still in its infancy, but I think the events of recent weeks will help it to gain notoriety. And all this social media, this TikTok, unless these millennials are directing their anger and their awareness to something, then it's just directing it into the abyss and it fizzles away. Puma is one of the main sponsors of the Israeli Football League, which plays matches in occupied territory in the West Bank. Puma is complicit in these things. Norway just announced yesterday the sovereign wealth fund of the country of Norway. They're going to divest from all companies that have business in the Israeli settlements. So that's a baby step. The divestment that I would like to see from Norway would be cutting all ties with Israel, full stop. Not just entities that operate in the West Bank, but all Israeli, because you can't disentangle what's happening in the West Bank from what's happening in Tel Aviv, what's happening in Gaza. It's all one apartheid system from the river to the sea. So for Norway to divest from the West Bank, read the political winds. It's a very small step in the right direction, but it's not enough.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Gaza!
Free, free Gaza!
Israeli launched an airstrike to Gaza, and over 200 people dying because of the bomb.
Okay.
Terrible thing, I think. And so Israeli is doing violation with the international law. It should be end as soon as possible. But in long history, so the situation of Palestine is very difficult. So there is a illegal settlement and separation wars and many checkpoints. So freedom of Palestinians are totally restricted. Japanese people who are familiar with the Middle East and are doing something for them, as they should say something to the international society and in Japanese society. I used to live in Jordan for 2 years, so this issue is very familiar with these issues. So I have many Jordanian and Palestinian friends there.
Okay. You went to Palestine?
Yeah. Before in 2018, I visited Jerusalem and Palestine, West Bank. Yeah.
No Gaza, no?
I couldn't. So people is very nice, but the situation is somehow very sad because I heard about the restriction and violences by Israeli forces. ありがとうございます。アッサラムアライコム。
Are you here to support Palestine?
Yes!
Then you listen to what the Palestinians say. End apartheid, end occupation, save Sheikh Jarrah, free Palestine, stop illegal settlements!
Stop illegal settlements!
I'm a Palestinian in diaspora from Nablus. It went great. A lot of people came and showed their support, and we came around the embassy of Israel to demand the end of the occupation, the freedom of Palestine, and end of Gaza blockade. I believe the best way is to educate ourselves first. If we just open our eyes and look into the social media, there are a lot of good pro-Palestine accounts which show the real information. The second thing is to, after we bring awareness to ourselves, bring awareness to the people around us as to the occupation and to the human rights, the illegal settlements that are happening. One thing to do is to support BDS, boycott, divestments and sanctions on Israel. Because if you look at past apartheid in South Africa and when the occupation was in Ireland, the way to their liberation is through monetary pressure, international pressure. So if the costs of the occupation are way higher than their benefits, then this will help put pressure to end the occupation and to liberate the Palestinians and end the apartheid. Please look up at the BDS online and look at the list of the companies that support the occupation and the bloodshed of Palestinians. Another way is to put pressure on the United States government, which is the biggest supporter and financial investor in weaponry and the Israeli government. If you're an American citizen, you can text RESIST to 50409 to demand your representative in the Congress to support Bill HR 2590. This bill is now being pushed by a lot of Congress people, so please be sure to support it to end the military aid to Israel. Sign the petitions as well. Rise up with Palestine. And do not forget to keep sharing, because we have been very suppressed. Our voices have been shut down and our life threatened just if we share the right information about Palestine or say anything against Zionism. And right now a barrier has been broken, although there is still a lot of censorship online. Facebook or Instagram is censoring any information on Palestine. There was a campaign to stop using them for one day and going on the Play Store and giving them a 1-star rating. These kinds of things put pressure on companies to stop censoring material on Palestine. So please keep sharing, keep demanding the freedom of Palestine, the end of the occupation, end of the apartheid, end the blockade on Gaza, and stopping illegal settlements, and the right for all Palestinians to return to their homeland. Jewish people who speak up against the fascist Zionist ideology, which is, by the way, against the Judaism religion, there are big allies, and I think their voices should be amplified. They should be advocating this, because it's not my job as an oppressed person to come and convince my oppressor of my humanity and explain to them why I'm being oppressed. It is also their responsibility to realize, see what's going on, open their eyes. The borders, the apartheid wall is just right there in Israel, but they turn a blind eye on what's happening and just like wander in this la-la land of nothing wrong is happening. Israel is a great country, but they really need to understand why is this happening? Why did Israel get to this point? What happened to the people who were there before that? And how did Israel come to become? Actually, Palestinians have a special love for Japanese people. I really appreciate the support from the Japanese people, the Japanese government. Please speak up for the oppression that the Palestinians are going through, and do not forget them. Thank you.
Palestine, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza. This is for the child that is searching for the answer. Wish I could take your tears and replace them with laughter. Long live Palestine.